Welcome back to the Skeptics Podcast. This will be episode number 4 with our first guest. Let me go ahead and do a little bit of introduction. Of course, my name is Dylan Hurley, and this is
John Reeves.
And our guest today is a famous man, essentially, in Arkansas. Y'all may know him. He goes by Grant Carey. That's his alias. That's what I'm just now finding out. He was the host of Quick 99, and is it News Talk?
News Talk.
News Talk.
Yeah.
News Talk 99.1. He has been on the Nancy Grace Show that I've heard about.
I actually was at one point. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
And he's a good friend of ours, a loving father, loving husband, and a Christian man. Grant, welcome to the show.
Wow, you set me up big there, man. I got to knock that up.
That's right. Knocking it out of the park.
Thank you guys for inviting me. I've been
course.
watching the show, and you're like, hey, you want to be on? I'm like, of course I want to be on. It's awesome. You know?
Right. And Grant is definitely going to be a recurring guest. We don't have a schedule absolutely set out yet, but he is a very interesting man, as you will get to see. And so, yeah, Grant, appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
So we were starting it off since you're our first guest. If you were in an Uber and you had to give him a quick lifeline of you and your highlights, what would you say is the story?
Just an elevator pitch, you must say.
Elevator pitch, that's it.
Gotcha. I'm a country boy, so I'll start out I grew up in Woodruff County, McCrory, out in the boonies.
Right.
And took a long time to get that accent out of me, you know what I mean? But I got into radio, and I got in radio right out of high school, really. And did that for up until just a couple of years ago. Loved doing radio. Unfortunately, the business is killing itself. And that sounds awful, but it's true.
Yeah.
And from when I got in it until now, it's like totally, night and day difference.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, radio didn't keep up with the times.
Right.
Stuff like this, like the podcasts and things like that that radio should be doing, that they got away from doing. And that's essentially what you guys are doing. Is filling that gap of talk shows. I mean, that's what you're doing is a talk show, and I think it's awesome. But yeah, I had to and I did a talk show for about 8 years on the radio. But yeah, I got out of that business, and now I'm actually I'm married with a son that's graduated high school, which is unbelievable. But I guess it's been about a little over a year ago, I got out of radio, got into working for an online college, and so I'm doing admissions for them now. Which is still kind of like what I like to do, because I get to talk to people every day from all over the country.
Right.
And so that's, find out their life stories
Right.
and interview them. So it's kind of the same thing,
Yeah.
And help them, reach their goals too by going to school. So that's kind of even cooler. So, so that's kind of where I am.
Gotcha. It's interesting that you said that, because literally one of my first questions was, do you think that radio is dying? Because we were talking about a couple of days ago. I mean, I don't know the last time I've listened to a song that's not in my playlist, let alone listen to the radio with everything. And of course, I assume podcast probably more than the average person probably should. But I'm anxious to see on your opinion on why you think that is. You kind of elaborated a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you think they could change that? Are they savable is pretty much what I'm asking at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll say absolutely to that too, because I think a lot of it is not necessarily the people in it, it's the people that own it and the people that run it. Because, well, let me back up. Let's back way up here.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I've been dealing with cold, so I'm getting over that. But let's go way back to the 90s, to Bill Clinton. Okay? And the FCC. He helped the FCC implement, and my mind is going blank now, basically I can't think of the word, I can't believe I can't think of that word. They passed a law. Basically, it used to be you could only own so many radio stations. Like, say you guys said, hey, we want to start our own radio stations in White County. You could only own so many radio stations within a certain radius, mile area.
Okay.
And once you get to that number, it's like that's all you can own in this area. Now you want to move way off over here, you can own some more over there, but you can only own so many here. Well, Bill Clinton said deregulation was what I was trying to think of. He came along with the FCC and said, no, you can own as much as you want to. You can own 27 radio stations right here in a 20-mile radius. If you got room to put them up. Well, that allowed Clear Channel, iHeart, all these other companies, Cumulus, and they own thousands of radio stations in the United States now.
Right.
Some towns, they own every radio station in town because there's no regulation on that.
Right.
But guess what that does to competition?
Yeah.
There's no need for you to be creative
For sure.
or come up with something better than the guy across the street because I own that one too.
That's right.
So I can just create cookie cutter radio that just has the same crap over and over and over, basically. No creativity, and who cares? As long as I'm selling ads, Right. And that's where it started. And so fast forward now, like you said, nobody's listening because there's nothing creative. There's nothing new. There's it's just like it's just a jukebox.
Yeah.
Not a good one. In many cases, you know what I mean?
Right.
It reminds me of that. I'm sure you've seen it before, but there was some guy one time put an edit together of like all the big news channels of the exact same thing that was said in every single thing.
Yes.
So
exactly.
it's pretty much just just like you said. See, if one company's buying all the other ones, let's just give them the cookie cutter layout. You got to say this. If it makes us money, we're all together. You roll it.
Yeah.
There's no creativity involved anymore.
You got a guy in Texas doing a radio show in Arkansas or New York or wherever, and all that, and they don't care. And that's the other part. Don't let me ramble on too long about this, but
No, dude, go
I'll take
on.
up the whole show. But
Go on.
that's the other part of it too. Is the advantage that terrestrial radio has, FM, AM, is locality. Because if there's a tornado fixing to hit Judsonia, there was a time and day when you could turn on, I'm going to turn on Quick 99, and they're going to tell me where that storm is at right now.
Right.
Or if I need to get in the radio, you know what I mean?
That's such a good point, because now that you said that,
Try to find that now.
yeah, that's such a good point. Because I mean, even if you went back a couple of years to when I was younger and my mom and dad were listening to the radio or anything, even though I might not have been able to comprehend exactly what's on it, I did know if I needed to figure out where a tornado was going, like you said, this is where to go.
Yeah.
And that's wild that you just said that, because now it's putting all the pieces together for me.
Yeah, and now you can't find that. Because if there's a tornado now, guess what I'm doing?
That's it.
Underground, you know, and I'm going to track it myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no, and you can go up and down the dial, and unless they're Little Rock or somewhere, and then they simulcast the television coverage.
Yeah.
So some monkey goes in there and pushes a button.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, that's
crazy. Right.
But again, there's no locality.
Right.
Because those guys were right here down the road in Xerxes going, hey, you're fixing to get by a tornado in Judsonia in 10 minutes,
Right.
And that's just one thing. That's one of the big local things of radio that radio had was weather. But, news, again, now I pick this up and I find out what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where I used to, I turned on the radio.
Yeah.
There's no news on the radio anymore, so
Radio.
it's just crappy music all day long.
That's it. Amen to that part. Amen to that part.
And and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that because I'm not in it anymore. I was saying this before I got out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
That it was that way when I was still in it. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you said that. A little side note, but it kind of goes on exactly what you're saying. And I'm sure the market's not tapped as much as it should be, but it's like, we were talking about this probably a month ago or so, is Christian music. We're all Christians here, and we all love God and everything, but if you're a Christian channel and you play the same song 20 times throughout the day, it wears you out. Right? So you got to find some other song to put in there. And I'm sure that there's not as many Christian artists nowadays, especially as there would have been maybe back then, because nowadays you can get ridiculed for everything. But when you were younger, how do you even go about getting in the radio business?
There's different avenues you can take, and initially I was going to go to college for 4 years and major in broadcast journalism, that kind of thing, do the radio side, blah blah blah, and you learn TV and all that. And then I got to looking at it, I'm like, I don't want to spend that kind of money to be in radio. You can't be that, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I ended up going to a broadcast school, and I don't know if they still exist or not anymore. It used to be a thing where it was like I had a radio side and a TV side, and it was just that. It was almost like a trade school, but for broadcast,
Right.
And I went over there for like a year to Memphis and went to school just for the radio part of it.
Okay.
And so I got the knowledge I needed to get into the market. Now I learned tons more in the next 20 or 30 years than I ever did in that school. You know,
once you're in it.
Yeah, it got me in, foot in the door, started.
Right.
So, but yeah, it was that. And so there's that. And like I said, I assume those are still there, those types of schools. And of course you got, 4-year, 2-year colleges.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
Broadcast journalism. Don't get me started on journalism, because it's a dying art too.
That's what another question that I was going to ask is, even though it would relate to you doing the news, because you normally get journalists are the ones that help you get the information for the news, but nowadays the chance that you're able to find a journalist that doesn't put his opinion in there somewhere to try to persuade a whole group of people of something else seems way lower than it used to be. And maybe I'm just spitballing because I'm only 26 and I didn't watch the news that much, but yeah, listen to it now. It's like whether whatever side you're on, of the multiple sides that there is, it seems like you get into one and it's just an echo chamber about the next thing and the next thing. That's all seems the same.
Right. It's whatever echo chamber you want to be in.
That's it.
Yeah. If I'm over here on the right, then I'm going to go to Fox. I'm going to go to,
Yeah.
If I'm over here on the left, I'm watch CNN, MSNBC.
Yep.
And then there's even ones that say they're middle of the road, but they're not really middle of the road.
Yeah, you're not really middle of the road.
And it's hard to do because, you don't want to skew, you just want the who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Right.
Tell me what happened. But I think that's been that way probably to some extent ever since we've had broadcast media.
Yeah.
It just wasn't as obvious that they were so skewed one way or another,
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, Uncle Wally, Walter Cronkite,
Yes.
He was just as left as MSNBC,
Right.
but you didn't know it,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's wild how that has changed, though. But I think another thing that here I got so many different notes, things that jump back and forth. Let's see. So correct me if I'm wrong. Are you and your wife, were y'all high school sweethearts?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And y'all have been married for how long now?
Dude, you put me on the spot. I'm in trouble. I'll see you later.
Well, I mean, let's just...
97.
Yeah,
so
long
I
time.
suck at math, so...
No, I'm right there with
so
you.
20-some odd years, almost 30 years. Yeah.
Okay. You also have a young son.
2027 will be 30 years. There we go.
30 years.
That took me a second.
30 years, that's wild.
Like I said, I suck at math. So.
But I'm recently married. John's looking for someone to marry.
Call 1-800.
That's it.
Yeah, there you go.
Call 1-800.
Drop a comment.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, drop a comment with a number.
Yeah.
Instagram tag, whatever you want.
doing?
Yeah.
But seeing what you see nowadays, especially coming from being a high school sweetheart, if there was any advice that you would have to give to people just now getting married and seeing how the world works now, because even though I was not alive when you were younger, I'm sure it's a lot different now than what it used to be, especially just because you got social media on everything that it is at this point.
Yeah.
So that's another question I wanted to ask you, is how your family deals with that, or if you do anything different about it. But when it comes to nowadays and getting married, all you hear about in everything is divorce and everything. And one thing that me and Cammie try to implement is just don't even say the word.
Right.
Like, don't keep that word even in your mind, because then it's like that 1% that you might take that step to do. But when it comes to a husband and a wife, how do you believe that staying in a great marriage throughout the years, what's some things that you maybe noticed or?
I think that's a good plan. Don't say divorce.
Yeah.
Just don't even have a great care. That's the easy way out. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
for sure.
Yeah.
It's just the easy way out. That's the only way to put it. Laugh. You gotta laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Even when stuff looks like it's just horrible, laugh. That'll get you through a lot of stuff. forgive each other. Don't go to bed mad. I would say. Don't forget Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she won't.
That's right.
I did that our first year we were married. I forgot Valentine's Day.
Oh, yeah?
Wow, what a mistake.
What a mistake.
Yeah. And then we got into this huge argument, and then I think it ended with something like me yelling, "You're just like your mother."
Yeah.
And she slammed the bedroom door, and it was pretty bad. But yeah, we can laugh about it now.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, is just being able to laugh through stuff. And also having a relationship with God, and both Him being a part of your relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's got to be part of it too.
Yeah, dude. I agree. I mean,
and agree on your morals and your,
that's what
your beliefs and stuff.
That's what I try to tell all my friends, because it seems like, and I'm sure I made it complicated. I'm sure you make things complicated. Everybody does different kind of things. But I say at least for your baseline, find the things that you value. And I don't mean like sports cars, and it don't have to be things like that. But if you're somebody that believes in God, I've seen some people make it work with a spouse that doesn't, but I'm sure that makes it 99% work.
Yeah.
If it was not like that.
Definitely more difficult.
100%. So find the things that you deem good, the things that you value, and then kind of go from there. And I had one friend of mine pretty much tell me, well, that just kicks all these people out then. And I was like, all right, good. I was like, that's probably not the people you need to mess with.
Yeah, right.
So just go on to the next one. And even though it might break some people's hearts,
Hey,
just mess with you. I think it does help you find that one a little bit quicker. When nowadays we always talk about if you were single nowadays and saying where do you start?
I don't know that I would. I think I'd go like to a monastery and just get a robe
Right.
and shave my head with a little ring.
Yeah, for sure.
Start chanting,
Yeah.
Because I mean, honest to goodness, I don't know how people do that nowadays, and even be like, what am I trying to say? Like, not be a male prostitute. Or,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like get caught up in all the disgusting crap that's online and social media and dating, quote unquote.
Okay, 6:30.
That's what my beautiful wife looks like when she opens the door. I'm gonna come over.
No, I don't know. Honest to goodness, I've got actually two friends, and used to be actually still co-workers, that are actually they're both older than me. They're in their early 50s. I'm single. And I'm like, dude, how do you even? And one of them's actually both of them are kind of into dating, and one's. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds there, but I can't imagine. I'll just put it that way. I mean, and my son probably doesn't think it's a big deal because he's got Snapchat and all this other stuff. I ain't into that,
Yeah.
I grew up with none of this stuff.
right.
If you wanted to go out with a chick, you went and talked to her and said, hey, or you called her or whatever. And you didn't, snap her a pic, or it's weird to me because I'm from a different generation. I think a better one, but
No, I deem so, and I'm not even from that generation.
Yeah, I mean, people think I'm strange. I'm not a big fan of some of that stuff, and like the Snapchat and all. And so, like, I've got 3 different ways I have to keep in touch with all these people that I interact with, and it's like I think some of it takes the special aspect out of it. Like if you send me a picture of yourself and texting me all day long.
Ruins a surprise.
Yeah, and then like,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like instead of it being a surprise where you're going out to eat or hanging out later that evening or anything like that, it's like, well, I've already heard from you all day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a little bit of my take on it.
I agree.
So
Yeah, I always tell people if you're looking for someone right now and you don't know where to look, because I would bet probably all 3 of us don't go to bars. I mean
No.
that's not where, even when I was younger, I didn't go there to pick up chicks.
Right.
That's not my thing. But the one thing is, and I count myself in this crowd to a certain extent because I love to play video games. That's one thing that I've always done. But I will say, as someone that does play video games, you have to put yourself around people, or that your odds go to zero. I mean, if you're not ever, what's Michael Jordan has a quote that's like, "You miss every shot you don't take." Is it Michael Jordan?
Yeah, it's 100% of shots you don't take, you miss.
That's it. So I always recommend trying to go to some kind of like social thing that's bigger than yourself. So like church. I mean, that's, somebody's probably living the same values as you if you're both going to church.
Yeah.
If you're not somebody that believes in God, then go to the gym, go to the community center, somewhere.
Go to a basketball game.
Go to a basketball game or something.
Dance.
100%.
If you're at school, I mean, obviously don't go for 40, but
that'd
be kind of creepy.
You show up and like, well, these people are my age.
All right.
You see your kid up there though, and you're like, I got you. But yeah, man, nowadays, good luck.
I could do like a 4-hour show on social media and how it's destroyed society.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, I'm part of it because I had to get into it for work.
Right.
And so I'm on Facebook, but there's a such thing as being too connected, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, I do too.
It's like you said, there's no surprise. There's no. I mean, I can see a chick like instantly. Oh wow,
Yeah.
Right.
If I'm dating somebody or whatever,
Right.
But it's like we're too connected. There needs to be some space.
There needs to be some space there.
Yeah.
Just like take it the same way that you would be like if you hung out with one person for a month and they were right there by your side. At some time you need some alone time.
Yeah.
So start kind of setting some kind of boundary. We try to turn our phones off at like 9:30 or something like that, or not look at it. I used to have a job where you have to keep it on all night long, which absolutely sucks.
Oh yeah.
But try to stay away from it just a little bit. I mean, going into the next topic, a lot of people thought this solar eclipse was about to knock out all of our stuff. So maybe we do get to go into this. Hopefully this podcast gets out, and I'm sure it probably will. But what is your opinion on the solar eclipse?
Oh, dude, it's been eating me for like, I don't know, ever since they started. What was it, a year ago they started talking about all this mess?
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What is this solar eclipse 2024?
And there's been multiple times in my life where they say, you'll probably never get to see this once, and it's happened twice.
Yeah.
Was 2017?
2017, yeah.
And then now it's happening now. So,
yeah, what's really funny about that is I asked somebody that was posting. I followed several of these social or Facebook groups about the eclipse, not because I'm into it, because it was funny the stuff people were posting, and some of the stupidity people were posting, and so I got to laugh at it. But this one person said, I said, well, I saw it in 2017. We walked down the street, we put our glasses on, we looked at it for like 3 minutes, and went back to work. Not a big deal.
Right.
I'm like, oh no, this one's totally different.
yeah.
That one's 99%. This one's 100%. I'm like, ooh, what? 1%? Oh, it's totally different. It's 1%. So, I don't know. It's just stupid to me. Like, it's cool and all. Yeah, I'll probably look at it if I can see it with the clouds. But it's just insane. Like like all the Galaxy Fest and the.
Oh yeah.
And not just Cersei, like all over the place. Like every little podunk town's got some kind of big thing.
Yeah.
Tell them what you told me today.
Man, so my folks, they went through the little town of Payneburg, close to where we live, and they said they were having this big event too, and they were doing all this barbecuing and stuff, expecting people to show up.
Right.
And then, I mean, by like 5 o'clock, they're selling it by the gallon bag, $20 for gallons of meat, and it's like nobody showed up. And so, I mean, I semi-hate it for them, you invest all this money expecting a return.
Right.
But at the same time, it seems a lot lackluster. Like, there's this huge hype.
Yeah.
But then it's like, no, there's no change. I mean, it's just another day.
You know what it reminds me of? We were having this conversation at lunch today with my parents. It reminds me of Y2K.
Oh.
I was there. I don't know if y'all were around then or not.
No, but I remember hearing about it,
Oh my! It's all you heard about for like over a year.
Yeah.
Like the power grid's going to go down.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to find food and all this stuff, you know. And I remember we had friends over at the house in McCrory and they had something going on the football field that night. and we're ringing in the new year and all this, and you could see the football field lights, and I'm like, oh, we'll sit on the porch and see what happens, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm expecting, you know, everything to just go dead.
Right.
Yep.
And we're like, 3, 2, 1. Nothing. Nothing happened, you know.
Right.
That's what it reminds me of. It's like, and then like, what? Nothing happened. I mean, maybe everybody will show up tonight. I don't, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I will say now, granted, this is from a famous gas station lady that told me this. Yeah. She said, I walked up to, this was probably Wednesday or so. No, it was Monday. And I went in this gas station to get a drink. And this lady at the counter came up to me and she said, "Are you from here?" And I said, "I'm from Searsley, like 20 minutes away from here." And she said, "That guy that was in front of you is from Sydney, Australia, here for this thing." And I was like, "What?"
That's
I was like, so as soon as I heard that, it sparked, okay, maybe we are going to get a bunch of people. But I'm just like you today. I'm like, where's everybody at? Like, we went to eat. Y'all went out to eat.
Where's the gridlock of traffic that they're supposed to be like?
Yeah.
Right.
Now, what you saw, like 4 or 5 cops or something like that, didn't you?
Yeah. So
like the little
I will
span of
say
time?
it was like 15 minutes. I was sitting there. I'd already seen 4 cops. You know, a sheriff, a state trooper, and some town police. So there is an influx of, police traffic, and I don't know if that has to do with the influx of people, or how they would even know. There's no way of tracking that really.
Yeah.
But I will say it's crazy. I know a few years ago they had this happening in Dallas, or I think it's just Texas. I'll say I don't know if it was Dallas for sure, and they did have problems with too many people showing up, and so I think that's where some of like our scare is coming from. But just to touch on what you're saying a little bit, the margin is really slim. I've heard for it to actually become dark during the daytime. There's like a 1% chance that you're in that path. And so like we are in that 1%. So what I heard is my mom was telling us about it, is normally this stuff happens over the ocean. So nobody even sees it. So it happens more frequently than people know. But it's out in the middle of the ocean. So it's dark for a minute and then it's done.
All the fish are like, what?
Right.
Yeah, all the fish are
And so it's
start swimming backwards for a couple of minutes.
Start swimming backwards. But that's a little bit I've heard about it. And I did notice the little bit of influx in people, but I just find it hard to believe, like the number they said, it was like 10 times our capacity.
There was like an extra 2 million. That's the number that everybody threw around with me, was extra 2 million.
Extra 2 million. Yeah. And that just seems absurd. 2 million's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when our population in Arkansas is 3 million.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that'll be in one location. I just don't see that being possible.
And here's my other part of that too. Is like if I'm in New York, Georgia, wherever, Sydney, Australia, what in the world is going to make me go, I'm going to go to Pembroke, Arkansas to watch this?
Yeah.
Why? You know,
that's what my
I'm
brother
said. I'm going to go
said.
where like a big city or stuff to do.
Right. No, you're going to go to Podunk town of Pembroke.
Nothing against Pembroke or Searcy.
Yeah. I graduated from Pembroke. The population's like 500 or something like that. So it's like, what? And there's one place to eat now because the other burnt down.
Yeah.
So twice. Yeah, twice. Watch out there, people from Sydney, Australia. You don't know what's about to happen. Oh shoot.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd pick that.
That's See, we were talking about that, me and my younger brother, and he was like, I'm pretty sure it starts at like Maine, and like there's this thin line that goes all the way from like Maine to Texas that cuts through Arkansas. And he was like, there's got to be a million bigger cities than ours that these people would rather go to.
And I feel bad for the businesses, like you were talking about, or you were talking about with the meat and all.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of these businesses that have invested money in special events and selling stuff and all extra product or whatever it is they do.
Yeah.
And now it's like, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that was a waste of money, you know?
Right.
And I feel bad for them. But,
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's like all the T-shirts. If you want a T-shirt, I would wait until after Monday, and you're gonna get one
like
50% off.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Dang.
2 for $1.
We should have made a T-shirt. That would have been absolutely great. Man. Well, I've heard from some people. It wasn't Connor talking about some people think the world's ending.
Yeah, so
that there's some kind of significance to this, and with something in the Bible. And I'm not well averse as much as I should be.
right.
But man, maybe you'll know, maybe you don't. Does it ever say much about space in general in the Bible?
No.
I didn't think so.
What direction do I want to go with this? I stroke my beard.
Here's a good question too that I ask him all the time, and I think it's up for great discussion. Whether you think we went to the moon or we didn't go to the moon, I don't think so either. The older I get, the more I'm like, what's the plan? But do you think that we're even meant to leave Earth?
No.
You don't think so?
You know, here's the deal with and I'll just throw it out there since we're on that topic. I don't think we went to the moon.
Yep.
I think the Earth is flat. Don't ask me how that works because I'm not sure how it works. But
well, it's wild you said that because Cammy's brother. Now I don't know if he thinks the world's flat, but he tells me because we have this discussion all the time. He says everything would still work the same, and I don't think we're meant to understand that at all. Like we're so busy trying to understand like gravity and all this other stuff. I just don't think we're meant to understand it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's so far past, I think, like the intellectual of a person to be able to understand that. Because at a certain point, I would think if you understand everything about everything, you're pretty much God in that case. And I just don't think that's the.
Yeah, because the Bible talks about how his thinking and his ways are way it's as far as heaven is from
Right.
earth. That's how way far past us he is. I mean, he created everything, you know.
Right.
And yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think it's like we can kind of figure out like what's going on, but it's like we really don't know how it works. You know, we can conjecture.
Right.
And so I think it's because if you notice, almost all the scientific things that you look at, it's a theory. Or it's a postulation, or in other words, it's not proven. It's
Right.
like we think this is how it works, you know,
Right.
because they're not really sure, you know. And like you said, maybe there's more important stuff, he wants us to worry about instead of that. But no, I think we're in a closed system, just like a terrarium or whatever he put us here. So this is where you're gonna live, you know.
Do you believe that this because we also have another friend that believes the world's flat, and do you believe that the sun and the moon is in that where we are, or do you think it's on the outside of that? Say the dome or whatever you want to call it. Some people believe that it's in there, and some people believe that it's on the outside.
Yeah, I think, and again, I can't prove any of this. I mean, I can go by what I've read and I've, researched and stuff, and what I think. And the interesting part of all that, whether it's outside or inside or rotating or we're moving or whatever's working, you can really look at it both ways, like you said, because even with you go, okay, it's flat and these are in here, it still operates the same way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't change anything as far as the way it looks, but I think it's more about like how you perceive it, And to me, just common sense. Where was I going? I totally went off of that question you just asked me. I just went way over here.
What was the question? I forgot the question.
Whether it was
was it inside
or outside?
Yeah, I think our friend believes it's inside. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
She believes that the sun and the moon is in the dome, I guess you would say, and I think she credits that to that because I do think she thinks we went to the moon, and she was like, if I think the world is flat and it's surrounded by this dome, there's no way that we could go to the moon if it was outside the thing, and I'm the exact opposite of that. I don't think the world's flat, but I don't think we went to the moon. Right. That part is just it's so far out. But if, just like you said though, if the world is round or the world is flat, it's still. I mean, we're not going to be able to prove it doesn't work the same.
Right.
How could you prove? How could you even start to prove that?
Right. And there have been like scientific studies, I'm talking about way back, like 1700s and stuff, that have proven a lot of the so-called theories of the flat Earth and the sun and the moon and the dome and all that stuff that have actually proven that, because the other part of that is we don't revolve around the sun revolves around the Earth.
Right.
So that is backwards, for what we've been taught, for years and years and years. It's that the term that I learned when I started researching all, because I didn't always believe that, but whenever that came out, like I guess it was Trump's first presidential election when they were talking about flat earthers. And,
oh yeah, it was huge.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
Because I've never, I'm like, and then my first reaction was, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Right. You're an idiot. You believe the Earth is, what? What do you, Columbus figured that out a long time ago,
Right.
And then
aren't we finding out now, like, Columbus was not the first person?
Yeah, he thought he'd be a real dude,
Yeah.
It's like,
everybody's like, oh, Columbus did it, and I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, I might need to go look back at that too.
But no, the term that I learned on that was cognitive dissonance, which is a cool word, phrase.
Right.
And I'd heard it before, but I'm like, what does that mean? Basically what that means is everybody has a set of beliefs and a belief system, stuff that they think is true and stuff that they think is false. And when you're presented with something different than that, you're like, most people are like, whoa, that's dumb. You're stupid. That makes no sense. I can't believe that. So and that's most people's reaction. That's what cognitive dissonance is. You're like, this goes against everything that I've ever been taught by school, parents, church, whatever, And no. And then at some point, some people kind of cave and go, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to look into that. Maybe there's something to it. I don't know. And that's kind of, and at first I had that same reaction. I'm like, that's dumb.
Yeah.
And I remember when I did research and stuff, I told my dad, and he's like, son, really? That's stupid. I love you.
Right.
That's stupid.
Huh.
But then he got, the more I talked about it, he's like,
Yeah.
So,
right.
And that's that is, and you're absolutely correct. That's the whole reason that we started this podcast, is because, I'll just go ahead and be honest with you. Obviously I can't guarantee that it's round. And honestly, I'd like for it to be flat. If I see one day that it's flat, I'm going to be like, I had some very wise people tell me that, and I'm wrong. But now that I'm just glad that I get to see it. So and we've found so many things, it seems like, in the last 5 years that it's pretty much been lies. So you're like, why would you not lie about one of the biggest achievements that the U.S. has ever beat Russia at, is get to the moon? Why would you not?
Why have we not been back?
And why have we not been back?
In 50 years?
Yeah.
60,
like that.
however long it's been,
Yeah.
So we were talking about I was on this big kick, and I'm sure me and you were texting about it at one time. And the thing that really throws me for the loop the most, there's two things. And one of them I may not understand a bunch, but the second one, I understand. It just doesn't seem right. Is how in the world do we call it with a landline? And I would just like to talk with one person that could just actually, do you know?
So, okay, I was talking about this the other day, actually. So, when they say landline, that's just how they ran the information, okay? So, we've been using, UHF and VHF signals with radios forever. They're super powerful. Strong enough that back in the day, helicopters, if they crossed their path, or planes, it would shut their electronics off, And that's still something that goes on today. There's birds that die all the time from radar planes that the military use. So I know the signals are really potent. And so the way I understand it is it was supposed to be radio signals that are being bounced back and forth between the two. And then the landline is what was carrying that information from this giant antenna to NASA.
Okay, so Nixon just had a phone.
Right.
That, as a receiver, he was talking, going,
Right.
hey, guys,
Yeah.
So he wasn't directly talking to people on that.
No. So
He was just talking to it via the signal that.
Yeah, he's
somebody-
talking to a radio that's sending a signal through a satellite dish looking thing to another one, and then that's how that's happening. It's just radios.
Yeah.
So it was taking that information, turning it into a series of like beeps, I guess would be the way to say it, and then the radio reads that and then transmits the voice. Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you stand? Where do you stand on all this stuff?
So I'm like an OG science guy.
He thinks
right?
it's like a halo or something.
No. So I'm an OG with the science, and I think that it's all got a backing somewhere. But I like the round Earth theory. You know, that's what I stand with. It in my mind it makes sense. You know, if we're spinning a spinning mass that was a ball, just makes more sense to me than like a disc, because it's going to be more stable in my thought process. Because whereas like a disc, if you're thinking about it in the wind or anything, you know, it can get off balance easily, you know. Whereas a ball, I mean, dude, if you want a ball to go straight, it's all you gotta do is have the right speed, and that sucker, it's not going nowhere. Whereas with a disc, all it takes is enough force underneath or on top, and it'll create a disturbance. Yeah, you like that?
Like that game you used to have with the marbles on it, where you moved the
Yeah. The things moving around everywhere.
I love that game. That's good. But that's just that's always been my take on it, you know. And like I was taught that everything revolves around the sun, and that from like I don't know the actual scaling on it, but we'll say like a 1,000,000-mile view, all of the stars within our solar system, right, in the Milky Way, like at the center of the Milky Way is the sun, and it's like, or our galaxy in the Milky Way, and it's the bright point. And so like everything revolves around a source of energy. That's all that is in my mind. It's just a big ball of energy. You know, it takes, I believe, 8 minutes for the light to reach the Earth, they say, as well as it's like 8 1/4 for the heat. So that sun you feel, I mean, it's 8 minutes is what it took for it to get from the sun to your skin. And I don't know, the whole idea behind all of it just makes more sense to me. And like the spin, that's the part that gets me, is the spinning. And there's a whole, technically it's theory, but you can kind of prove it. So like the Coriolis effect, it's real famous with ELR shooting, which is extreme long range. When you shoot a bullet past a mile is whenever you really can see the effects. There's been some studies done. I'm like beyond deep on the rabbit hole on ballistics. I find the ballistics of firearms very fascinating, but when you really stretch them out there, in your Kestrel, a little device that takes the wind and it takes the humidity, takes the temperature, literally all the readings where you're standing, it takes them. And it gives you a set of number of elevation and windage to put into your scope. You know, how high do I need to aim my gun and how much left and right? Well, there's a calculation. They've made a calculation for the rotation of the Earth that at past a mile you have to take into effect for that round to go where you want, because it's spinning. And so if it was flat and spinning like this, I think it wouldn't be as much of an issue, which actually goes into another thing. It is because it's not if you're horizontal, but if you're vertical, up and down, north and south with the Earth, it becomes more of a problem because it's spinning this way, right? Whereas when you're like this and it's spinning, it's a rotational mass that's forcing against you, which you defeat with the gunpowder burn. You know, it's a small explosion, pushes the bullet out of the firearm. But north to south, I was seeing a guy talk about, he really seen it emphasized, this spin drift of the Earth causing, because it all has to do with the time it takes to get that bullet to target.
Because if you're going north to south, you're going against the spin.
Right, you're going against that spin.
So if you're shooting north, east, and west, you're going with the spin,
and
or
so
against it this way.
And so, like, if your wind, which the wind will change 10 times or actually more than that in a mile, because it's always, there's intersecting wind paths and stuff. And so I like how all my knowledge goes with shooting. I probably seem like a nerd, but I was listening to a guy talk about it, and there's such a big emphasis, and it wouldn't make sense if the wind was what was causing it. But it does make sense because if the wind's blowing left, okay, but you need to dial right to counteract that wind, okay, so it's going to tell you +5, so you're going to dial +5, okay, and let's say you bump it out a little bit further, and now it's like, okay, you're out so far, we're only going to +3. The wind's still the same, but that spin is causing a little bit of a delay, and so on target, this is coming, and then it meets, and so that's kind of a little bit of my take on
That's
it.
some deep math.
That's
some deep science right there.
Yeah,
deep.
I've not gotten all the way into the equations of it yet. I'd really like to learn how they because some guy had to come up with that math, because there's a device that does the math and tells you what to do, and so that's one of the only big pieces that I really like to take into effect when I think about it. Is as dumb as it may sound from a shooter's perspective, well, let me dumb it all the way down to shooting guns instead of doing the fancy NASA explained X, Y, and Z. I don't know all that. I know guns, and so
that's cool that you can relate it to something you know, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. And so that's how I've kind of based some of that. It's it just makes more sense. As well as I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson. I mean, you can believe it, not believe it, that's up to you. But he talked about.
I'm not a fan of that. I'm sorry.
Apparently, the tallest point on the Earth and the lowest point, Marianas Trench, if you shrunk the Earth down to the size of a cue ball, he said it would be smoother than a cue ball. Because in the grand scheme, it's really not as rough as the Earth appears, is what they say.
See, how could you even come up with that?
Yeah.
See that's my hardest part of that. It's
and I don't have anything to relate it to.
That dude blew my mind though, because I was watching a video with him.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, the Earth's not really round. It's like a pear. It's like a oblate spiral.
Oh no, I have heard
and
this
it's
before.
like a pear shaped. I'm like, wait, what?
I've heard
I
oblong.
have heard that now that you said something about it.
An oblong shape, I'll believe. Now, like a pear shape where it's bigger here, it's
It's like,
Yeah. The bottom's a little bit bigger than the top.
But take a football for
The Earth's
example.
got some back.
That's right. That's right. It's got some back. Oh shoot, that's funny, dude.
But if you take the shape of a football, right, and it's pointing on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
Now make that less extreme, and squish it down. That seems more possible. And the only reason why that is another real world example. I was in machining class going to college, and my instructor was like, "You want to see something cool?" I'm like, "Well, duh." So he grabs an orange out of his lunchbox and he puts it under compressed air. Well, the compressed air will keep it spinning. It'll keep it afloat above the air. Just the force of the air is strong enough to keep it up. Well, it starts to spin to keep it from just blowing out of the way. You have to get it right in the right spot. And so it'll gain rotational mass in that point, and it starts to pull itself
stretch
apart
it a little bit, yeah.
because it starts spinning faster and faster.
Wow.
And I mean, the same can be said about tires, right? So in NASCAR, their tires are rated for 200 plus miles an hour. Mine on my truck right now are rated for about 112 miles an hour. If you put them on a NASCAR, they'll stretch and blow up. Well, that's essentially what that orange did. It eventually ripped itself apart.
Wow.
And so I could see that. That makes sense in my mind too. If the Earth's spinning slowly in this shape, it's kind of got a bit of a bulge on the middle portion. That makes sense only because I've actually seen an orange do this whenever you've applied the same pressures to it.
But why would it become you're saying from the beginning it was oblong? Because in your case, if you were taking the orange, it's round to start with.
Right.
And then you essentially make it go faster.
Right.
Is what's stretching the motion.
Right.
So I would be anxious to know if anybody believes that we're now spinning faster than we were spinning before.
I don't know. On that portion, I'm not sure, but I do know that like my ideology behind it is I try to back it up a little bit with the biblical stuff where he talks about when he made the earth and then he made people. Well, if he made the earth first, and a day with the Lord is 1,000 years. I'm getting a little biblical on everybody here, so stick with me.
I like it.
Yeah. Then who's to say in 1,000 years' time the Earth, He made it round, put stuff into motion, and then it takes its form. And then once it was formed, He said, okay, now people can inhabit it.
Well, John opened up the Bible, so
Yeah.
and that's awesome.
That's
so
awesome.
I'm going to go there.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Just speaking for me personally, because I'm not gonna. I've realized a long time ago I'm not going to try to make anybody believe that.
Right.
That's what I believe.
Right.
You believe it's round, and that's cool.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's cool to talk about. I looked at it first of all from a scientific standpoint, and reading and researching. Well, why, and looking at both sides.
Right.
Then, somewhere along the way, I watched a video where this guy was talking about the biblical aspect. I'm like, the biblical aspect of what? Because that's just something that even believers just, it spins and it's round and, we're in the, all this stuff. But then when I got to looking at the passages he brought up in Genesis and creation and all that, front to back, it doesn't match up. I mean, because there's over and over and over, there's places where he's talking about the earth is solid, it doesn't move, it's on foundation. It's, nothing can shake and move it, and all this. That's just a few examples, but there's a lot. I'm talking about verse after verse after verse. And when you look at the order of the creation, if it's a literal 7 days, 6 days, and he rested the 7th day.
Right.
If it's when the way you read it, it says the morning and the evening were the first day, morning and the evening were the second day. Well, that's one. If it's round, a rotation.
Right.
That's literally what we know is 24 hours.
Right.
Correct.
So, there's just. That's really what I'm trying to say is what sealed the deal for me is once I got to the biblical part, because I do believe, and I'm like, whoa,
Right.
like this doesn't match what. And then from there, you springboard into, and this really blew my mind when I first learned it, without the heliocentric model, which means the sun's in the middle, everything else revolves around it, and we're flying through space and the galaxy and the universe, everything's just, without that model, you can't have Big Bang Theory. And you can't have evolution. And that's really what seals the deal too for me. I'm like, okay, it makes sense when you think about it, because if you take that out, these don't work. Which is two things that most people have,
Believe work.
Yeah, evolution, Big Bang, that's where we came from, But without this, you throw that out the window,
Right.
Anyway, I don't mean to get too deep there, but
No, I love it, and it gave me a different a view to kind of look at it from, and I don't know what to think of it yet. I'll have to try to process it. But on the flat Earth model, right? Working on we're gonna call it a 2D plane. It's not 2D, obviously, but
right.
Working on a 2D plane. Using this dome, for lack of better terms, if the sun's here, right? Whether we're stationary or we're moving, and this is moving, I'm trying to think now, when would darkness occur? When would the evening occur? That's something that I'm having trouble with, just
So if you
off the top. So like,
It's like a big whiteboard.
yeah. So essentially, like, imagine this ain't gonna be a good one, because I think I could probably answer that if it was coming from the say we're here.
Yeah.
And the earth is flat.
Yeah.
When this sun moves, me personally, if I was to think the world was flat, I don't
Yes.
think it does this. I don't know if I don't see why the sun would go under the. But maybe I'm wrong.
The most of models I've seen is it goes around.
Right.
Yeah.
But if this was
Well,
us right here,
Yeah.
I mean, as you can see, my finger's here, and when it gets a certain distance away from it, I mean, there will be no more light that hits this one spot. If I'm making a good,
Yeah.
say this was like a direct beam,
Right.
like you had like your
Only cover
surefire
like
light.
that much, yeah.
Right.
At a certain point, that runs out of the area to where there's any light that hits it, unless there's like is an Antarctica or Alaska, one of the two that like it can pretty much stay light forever. I can't remember which one
Alaska
it is.
stays light for so many
But
days
it's like,
every year,
it's like
and then dark as well.
You imagine Alaska here. I mean, if it's constantly getting a little bit of light all the time, then that would keep the light there,
right?
Essentially for all the time. I mean, that's the way that I think about it. If it was coming from, the down portion of the light. Now, heck, maybe it goes all the way under it. I don't know, but I'm just like you. The models that I've always seen has been the ones where it's up here and it kind of goes around like that.
And the problem I have with that too is like you said, the Antarctica and Alaska thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then you change, and it's hard to get your head around sometimes because on that model, Antarctica's here.
Right, correct.
It's not, and then Alaska is up here in the middle,
Right.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, well, what about seasons? And what about, 6 months of daylight, 6 months of dark in Alaska? And all
Right.
that. The theory is that the circumference, the path that takes, the sun, changes. Like it gets elliptical and then it gets more circular, so it moves out this way. It may go here,
right,
and then it goes further out. So this area is getting more sun. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
the same way they talk about the tides.
Yeah.
Right. So like when the moon is revolving, as they say, in a certain path, then you're going to have these high tides, and then when it gets to a certain other point, you're going to have low tides.
Mm-hmm.
To do with the gravitational pull of the moon pulling on the water.
Right.
Is what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the end, the gravity would technically work the same. I mean, I think the light would almost work the same too.
Well, I don't know, the light that's the hard part for me to think about, because it's easier for me to believe that here's light, it's a beam, even if it was radiant or a straight beam, if you're facing away from it, it's dark. If you're facing towards it, it's bright. And that's just an easier, model to process.
Because the one you grew up with.
But that's a good example of what you're talking about. Like
right.
Like he was saying, you could see it both ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Because with that other model, that light, if it's up in the top of the
right.
dome, it covers this much.
Right.
And if it's moving, it's
right.
only going to cover that area, and this part's going to be dark. So
right.
it operates this. You still got half dark, half light.
Right.
Only instead of this, you've got.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And I'm even talking about that oblong path, the same way the tides work. Interesting.
You were talking about bullets, and then we can move on to something because I know you don't want to be a whole hour on this.
No, dude, you're good. You're good.
I found this. I made some notes because there's so much of this stuff, and
yeah,
your head just goes, But it's talking about the spinning.
Yeah.
According to this is scientific stuff.
Yeah.
The spin of the Earth is around 1,000 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's how fast we're moving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then our travel around the planets travel around the sun approximately 67,000 miles an hour.
Okay.
So we're spinning at 1,000. The whole planet's going 67,000 miles an hour around the sun. Okay. The Milky Way galaxy is moving through the universe, which we're inside of, at 1.3 million miles an hour.
How do you calculate that?
I don't know. That's what they
say.
Right.
Now compare that. You figure all that up, all that motion. The average bullet moves at 1,700 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's a fast. I mean, but that's average.
Right.
Bullet speed.
Yeah.
So how are we even? Why are we not hanging on to something?
Right.
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm
right.
just saying,
no.
if you start adding all that stuff up, it's like we ought to be like, hanging on.
You ought to be like really just.
I mean, that to me, I'm just like,
right.
You sit, but you observe everything being still.
Everything being still.
And the answer to that, I realize, is from scientists and from people who believe it's round, it's so big.
Right.
That the size is, that's why you can't feel it, because it's so huge.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just to me that's insane numbers for one.
Yeah.
Right.
But to be moving that fast,
right.
It's like, why can I not feel that? And the fact that if you take this is really simple, I realize, but maybe oversimplification. If you take a ball, a tennis ball, soak it in water, It's got fur on it. And you spin it. What happens?
Well, the water keeps throwing off of it. Yeah.
But yet, with the theory of gravity, makes it stick to it. Which is why I don't believe in gravity, but that's a whole nother. I believe in density, and objects have density and weight, and then how they move depends on the matter they're in, whether it be water or air or vacuum. With a vacuum, you drop a feather and a hammer, they both hit the ground at the same time.
Yeah.
Because there's no resistance. And,
Right. You got me thinking with the ball thing now. With the ball in the water, because you're right. Like, if I stuck it here and we're on Earth where the gravity is perfect for us essentially, and you sit that thing and you spun it, water would come off. If you were in space where there was no gravity and you spun it, wouldn't the water still come off?
Yeah, the ocean should just fly off the ball. I mean,
And say you were at
it's
the
the exact
moon,
opposite of everything.
and the gravity is different. But no matter what, you take that ball and you spin it, and water's coming off the ball.
Because it creates a centrifugal force away from
And I don't think
the spinning body.
I don't figure
it's going to get thrown off.
it would matter how big the ball is because that's what the water
theory.
flying off of it.
That's my theory. It's like it's big ball, small ball.
Oh, that's a good one.
I don't know. I mean,
I'm curious now, but like on the pressure situation, so like barometric pressure, could that have anything to do
the
with
atmosphere, like
right?
holding in
The atmosphere. So other things don't have their own atmosphere.
Right.
Is there any way that you could like create that?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because
Probably
because
a way
that
you
that
like a bottle or
would that would
Yeah.
I mean that would I think would represent a lot. I mean, maybe not to like politicians or anything,
Right.
but like to everybody that's wondering that, because if you could recreate that somehow, even if you're turning with all the pressures and anything, I think it would probably lead more to the world being round. If somehow you could spin that ball
And the water
not fall off of it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
We're going to start building models.
Because I'd love to.
But that's the cool part of that is that, whether you believe it or not, it gets you thinking.
For sure.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking, you're dead, man.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
That's why I like y'all show. With the first show, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, it's like all about talking.
It's perfect, and I think honestly we're getting to the time where we're gonna have to wrap this episode up. But you ended that so perfect, because even though you think this and I think this and he thinks this, we can all sit here and have a conversation about it, because in the end, nobody knows.
Right.
I mean, unless you're Buzz Aldrin or somebody and you tell a little girl in elementary school that you never went to the moon. Just want to put that out there.
Until the three of us get in a rocket and go out and go see.
I tell them this all the time. I'm like, if we could ever go to space, like 99% survival, I would do it just so I could be like, okay, this is how this should be. Or you hit the dome on the way out and it ends there.
I don't know. Elon sent a rocket out just a few days ago.
It crashed though, I think.
I thought that one made it.
Made it weird.
I think it was just a test rocket. I think it just sent one up.
Oh, so it didn't hit anything.
Water. Oh, I don't know.
One thing I got to say about SpaceX and Elon Musk is their CGI is way better than NASA. It's so much better.
For sure.
Look at that rocket, the first one they did.
Yeah.
When it went up and then it just went, and it came back and sat. I'm like, that's not even how that works. I'm like,
dude,
it was so smooth.
I saw that and I was like, no way we're getting to this level. And then you start really looking at it and you're like, I don't think we're at this level. I don't think we're at this level. But, dude, I love having you on here.
I've had a great time.
This is awesome.
This has been fantastic.
And then hopefully when we get the other thing for the camera that can make the podcast go a little bit longer, we can start having like 2-hour, 4-hour ones, because I would love to keep this conversation going.
Yeah.
And you gave me the first question that I'm going to ask you for next time you're on here. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. But is there anything else that
no?
Good way to roll it out?
Happy Eclipse Day.
Happy Eclipse Day. That's right.
Day. Be
This
safe
will
out
be
there.
episode number 4. I hope y'all enjoy. Like and comment, and show somebody some love today.
Yeah, and thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Later, guys.